Hello and welcome to the On Spirit podcast, where we inspire you to develop and enhance your entrepreneurial talents and skills. This series is packed full of information, tips and interviews that help you change and find the edge in your game. I'm your host, Beju Solanki. I'm a performance psychologist and I've been working with entrepreneurs and business owners for the last 25 years, helping them improve their game. To find out more information about me, please look on all social media platforms, but specifically Clubhouse and Instagram. Before we launch this week's episode, I'd love to tell you about the Change Your Game Scorecard. If you're struggling to achieve what you really want and you're not sure where to start, the Change Your Game Scorecard will help you identify where you need to improve. Life is a game, and there are 3 core games you need to conquer to succeed in life. That's the inner game, your mindset, your emotions, your thoughts. Your game plan, that's your strategy and your roadmap. And then your outer game, how consistent and persistent you are in taking actions. The Change Your Game Scorecard will help you identify how strong you are in each of those games. Please visit changeyourgamescorecard.com for more information and get your report today. Thank you for listening. Hi, welcome to the next podcast. I have Jamie Smart here with me today. How are you, Jamie?
So far, so good.
Fantastic, great. Now, Jamie, you don't know this. I knew you before you knew me. I saw you at an event many years ago. From what I recall, your NLP days, salad NLP, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll elaborate on that. But some people who listen to this, because you're quite well known within the coaching community, you've written several books, you do a lot of work around coaching. I loved your book, Clarity, that came out several years ago. But where did it all start for you? Were you always in the training space? Were you always in the coaching space? Where did it start for you?
Well, no, funnily enough, it's kind of interesting. I used to be a chronic alcoholic. I was working as I grew up in Canada, which is where I got this voice. I moved to the UK when I was 20, because I really like the culture here and I love pubs and all that sort of stuff. And I was working in the publishing industry, got a job as a computer operator. And then I progressed through that, became a computer programmer, then a business analyst, then a project manager, then a program manager. And so by the mid 90s, I was managing very large multi-million-pound software projects with like hundreds of people working on them and that sort of thing. But I was also chronic alcoholic. I found that work very, very stressful. It wasn't who I was. And I had this amazing stress relief technique that I discovered when I was 12, which is drinking alcohol. And it worked great, but it had increasing downsides in my life. And I got married in 96. And within a month, my then wife was ready to go. She was like, I'm out. I said, well, don't worry, baby, I'll stop drinking. So I stopped drinking. And I found that very difficult because what I hadn't realized, Beju, was that I didn't actually have a drinking problem, that the drinking was a solution to what I would have called back then a thinking problem. Okay. What I would call it now is a fundamental misunderstanding of who I was and of how my mind worked and that sort of thing. But anyway, I was good at my job. I kept getting promoted, made lots of money and stuff, but I was, dying inside and using alcohol to cope with it. So anyway, I went, don't worry, baby, I'll stop drinking, which I did. And then I was introduced to a whole world of pain, and I thought, once I stop drinking, everything will be great, right? But no, it was the opposite. It was like, that's when things got really, really hard. And so I went on a journey. I went on a journey of recovery and I became more interested in spirituality. And the other thing was, if you'd have asked me in my 20s what I thought about anything to do with personal development, hypnosis, the mind, beliefs, self-belief, anything like that, I'd be like, that's hippie bollocks, isn't it? Like I was not interested. I was not interested. I was very, very dismissive of it, but I got kind of beaten into a state of reasonableness and started to realize, oh, there's something to this. So anyway, I continued to, do my job as a project manager and a program manager. And I became interested in NLP. I read about it and I thought like a Sunday supplement, I thought, oh, I could use this to be more influential in my work because at the time, we used to have a saying, Beju, which was in the technology game was, it's never a technology problem. It's always a people problem. And rule number 2 was, even when everyone swears it's a technology problem, it's still a people problem. So I knew that being able to be more influential and being able to speak in public and that sort of thing would help me when it came to getting people to buy into the projects I was running and that sort of thing. I had a problem, which I was terrified of public speaking. So I went on a public speaking course, hated it, it was awful. But then I was reading about NLP. I was like, maybe this could help me. So I went on a 2-day NLP training in 1998. And this is going to be interesting to people, Beju. So up until that point, I'd had 2 kind of thoughts, you could say. And one was, there's something I'm meant to be doing, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. And if only I could figure out what it is, then I would go do that, because I had that real sense of kind of that there's something I'm here to do. There's some bigger, with my work, I always kind of felt like I'd kind of fallen into it. I kind of felt like a bit of a fraud in a way, like it's kind of easy on one level, but really stressful on another level. I thought there's something I'm meant to be doing that's what I'm here to do, but I didn't know what it was. But I was like, I would definitely do it if I knew what it was. But the second thing was, I had friends and stuff who were starting their own businesses, who were going as contractors and making more money and having more time freedom, or starting companies and doing entrepreneurial ventures and all that sort of stuff. And I was kind of like, well, that's okay for them, because they're that kind of person. But I'm an employee kind of person. I've kind of got employee DNA, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. So anyway, I go on this 2-day training course about NLP to learn about communications for my job. And 2 things happened. I had 2 insights. I didn't know they were insights, but there were 2 insights. The first insight was, oh, you don't have employee DNA. You can do whatever you want to do. It may not work out, but you can have a go. You can try. You can, because I kind of, up till that point, Beju, I kind of felt like I was living a life that had been kind of set up for me in advance by someone else. It was like, it was a life that it felt like life was happening to me. I didn't have any sense of being kind of the master of my destiny or in control of it or guiding it or anything like that. I felt like it was happening to me. And I had this insight, and it's like, not only are you kind of steering the ship, but you have been all along. It's been you all along. You just didn't realize it. You thought it was someone else. It's almost like someone, knocking themselves on the head and going, I can't figure out why my head hurts. It's like, it's you. It's your hand. It's you doing it. So that was like, holy moly, that's amazing. That immediately changed my perspective. But the second insight I had that weekend was this. So I'm watching this trainer, telling stories and coaching people and just really engaging the group and that sort of thing. And just really having an impact on people and sharing stuff that was really, really fascinating. And every corporate training course I'd ever been on up till then was like a practical approach to data management in the 20th century or whatever. It's like boring as hell. And all of a sudden, like, I'm on this course and it's amazing. And I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that. And then I had a problem because I was literally terrified of public speaking. Like, I'm not just saying it for the story, like proper knees knocking, throat would dry up, color would drain from my face, anxious about it weeks in advance, properly terrified. So I had those 2 insights that weekend. I'm like, okay, well, I just got to get that handled. So surf's up. I quit my job 2 weeks later, and
I was going to say, was it then you were still working then? So, but
yeah, I had a job. I was an employee of a firm in London. But like I say, what I did was I thought about, okay, this is clearly what I want to be doing. This is what I want to do. So what makes sense? Well, I'm going to need some extra time because my job, I was working like long hours. I'm going to need time and time flexibility. I could do with some more money because I want to invest in, I'm going to retrain doing something that I'm terrified of. And not only doing something that I'm terrified of, but teaching NLP, which is a complex cognitive skill set and all kinds of stuff. I'm like, I'm going to need some extra money for that. So I'm like, well, what can I do? It's like, well, I could become a contractor and I could charge double or triple what I'm earning now. Yeah, that'll work. So I handed in my notice 2 weeks later, and that was that.
And it was simple as that. So just because people sometimes listen to these stories and they think, oh, they made a decision and it's quite easy. Was it easy for you to become a contractor? Was that relatively easy?
The contractor bit was easy. Okay, so here's why. I was, for whatever reason, so I don't know if you know, but project management, right now, they're 50% of IT projects that are running right now are failing horribly. They're failing to deliver results. They're running way over budgets. They're messy. For whatever reason, Beju, I have a knack for project management. I have a knack for it. So I was working for a consultancy, but I'd kind of gone native in the company that I was running a project for. And I basically said to the consultant, I said to my, the people I was working for, I say, I like working with you guys. I'm going to quit the consultancy and I'm going to go contracting. I'll give you first dibs on whether you hire me or not. So they immediately hired me to do that. I needed to get my boss's blessing. So I said, I'm going to do this, but I'll only do it with your blessing. If you won't give your blessing, I'll go and contract somewhere else. But he wanted the project to be a success, and he had lots of staff on that project because he was a consultancy. So he's like, no, go for it. Go for it. It's fine.
I think the lesson there is don't assume anything. You know, it's very easy for you to think, actually, why would they pay me 2-3 times more for doing the same amount of work? I don't want to risk that. But you just put your situation. So I'm going to quit. If you want to hire me, then fine. This will be the parameters, or those will go somewhere else.
Yeah.
As opposed to thinking, oh, how can I do that to my current employee? You knew what you wanted and you put that in place.
Yeah, and you know, the 2 weeks between having that realization and handing in my notice, I probably, you know, I don't really remember it that well, but I would imagine there was a certain amount of, you know, agonizing and what if it doesn't work and worry and all that sort of thing, which is just as normal, isn't it? But yeah, the thing I really remember about it, Peju, is walking out of my boss's office after I'd handed in my notice. I felt like a huge lead weight that I hadn't even known was on my shoulders had been lifted from it. I felt a sense of freedom and liberation and possibility that I'll remember for the rest of my life. And what I didn't even stop to think about at the time is, well, where was that lead weight feeling coming from? Like, it was coming from my own mind. It was coming from my own mind. And the moment I handed in my notice, it's like, you're free. You're free at long last. Because I'd had that feeling of wanting to do something, but not knowing what it was. And yeah.
And was your marriage still intact? Because you said that
at the time it was. Yeah. Well, therein lies a story, though. At that time it was. And my then wife was very supportive of me, regardless of the fact that at the time, so that was like June 1998, May that I handed in my notice. We were trying for a child at the time. So she was, given that financial security and that sort of thing was important to us at the time, she was pretty understanding. But I'll tell you a funny story actually related to what you said about asking for what you want. So I'd been working for this firm as a contractor on $650 a day for a few months, and all these laws were coming in about IR35, and it was going to mean there were implications for contractors, basically. So I went to the HR guy at that firm and I said, look, I'm going to need to raise my rates to cover the additional tax payments and that sort of thing. So we knew we were going to be looking at something between 900 and 1,000 a day. So he comes back to me, he said, Jamie, I'm going to do you one better. I said, what's that? I'm going to give you a package where basically we want to take you on as an employee of this company. So not the company I'd left, the company I was contracting for. And I want to take you on as an employee of this company. And you're going to get basically a director level package. You'll get a company car. You'll get this bonus scheme. You'll get a salary that's double what you were earning over there, and da 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 da. I said, because we really want to have you on board. And I said, no, thanks, I'm good. I'll stick with the contracting deal. He's like, but what? This is a very attractive, prestigious package. I'm like, oh no, it's a lovely package, but I'll stick with what I've got, because I knew, Beju, that what I wanted was the freedom. And he said something interesting to me. He said, well, what about job security? I said, well, there's no such thing as job security, is there? Like you guys made people redundant, 6 months ago. There's no such thing as job security. That's just that's not real. And he got really shirty. He said, well, how are we going to ensure that you're going to stay with us for the whole project? I said, I don't know, build it into my contract. He's like, okay, we're going to do that. So I ended up, not because I wanted it, but because they wanted it, having 6 months notice either way, a longer notice period than anyone else in the company. And I didn't even want it. It really taught me a lesson, which was the less the less you need it, the more freedom you have to negotiate. And the more the other person needs it, man, the stronger a position you're in. And from a negotiation perspective, is really
I think there's a lot to be said in that. We're recording this podcast during this pandemic, COVID, and people are losing jobs and being made redundant, and people are forced into situations where they're going to have to look at their lives in ways they haven't looked at it before. But what I'm taking from your discussion is that as soon as you've decided what you want, you said, right, what do I need to create around me to make that happen? And from a financial point of view, I can go contracting. And even though they threw this massive, on the surface, fantastic offer, you stuck to your guns. No, that taking that offer would mean I'm not pursuing what I want.
Yeah, and that was it. Like, Beju, I've had probably, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen times in my life where I just know. Okay, so I know what the right thing is for me. And this was one of those. I just knew. Happened later. It happened a number of years later. But with this thing, I just knew. So it's like, okay, well then nothing else matters. It wasn't even really a negotiation. Like it's not like I took his offer away and thought about it. I was like, no, it was so obvious. It's sort of like if you're, I don't know, if you're going on holiday to Australia, and you're really excited about it, and someone says, hey, I've got this great trip to, somewhere that isn't Australia. You're like, well, no, I'm going there. I'm going there. Like just wasn't relevant.
So you quit, you did contracting,
yep.
And did you immediately go and start training in NLP?
I went and started being trained in NLP,
right.
And then practicing everything I was doing. But I spent the next 99, 2000, 2.5 years, basically continuing to contract, but spending all my available excess time, energy, and money learning and practicing NLP. And then what I did was, because I was still running projects, and I thought, well, these projects would be great opportunities to practice what I'm learning. So, for instance, I was terrified of public speaking, and the opportunity came up. We were doing this project that had a part of it that was a communications piece, where this was before we had Zoom and stuff. We basically had to go to multiple different countries around the world, and in the companies, there needed to be a presentation about this stuff, and then different people on the team would talk. So I said, well, I'll do the presentation. It was going to be like 20, it was going to happen 20 times. I said, I'll do it. Now, I was properly terrified of public speaking. And I knew that the first one I did, I would be awful at it. Because I was just so scared. I was so scared. Like, it was just, bless me. It was dreadful. But I knew that if I did it 20 times over the course of a month, did the same presentation, by the time I'd done it 20 times, I'd be better at it. And I was. And what I discovered was that by the time I was maybe at number 12, 13, 14, I was kind of relaxing and enjoying myself. I was like, oh, this is actually good. So I kind of, there's a saying which I didn't hear until many years later, but it really resonates with me, which is, someone said, fear is wetting your pants. courage is doing whatever the right thing is in wet pants. And I really get that. Like it really makes sense to me that you don't need to feel confident in order to do something.
It's interesting you say that.
Go on.
Because I put a post out the other day on social media saying, what comes first, courage or confidence?
Oh, courage. A million times courage. Yeah.
Which builds the confidence. Because if you wait for confidence, you know, you could feel confident on top of the world, and one moment, one thought, one situation could destroy that.
Sure.
And it's like, well, hang on, what are you gonna do then?
Yeah.
So with courage, you draw upon this. You know what to do. It's the right thing to do. It might cost you financially. It might cost you in terms of being out your comfort zone. But it's the cost that you've got to deal with, and be okay if it doesn't work out and go again.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Beju? The other thing is, it looks to me like confidence is what I call a phantom. There's not even any such thing. What confidence is an absence of insecurity in a given domain. It's an absence of insecurity. And you've seen it. You've seen it when someone's trying to come across as confident. It just rings hollow. When we see someone genuinely demonstrating confidence, they're just not thinking about it. They're just, you know, they're coming across naturally. And it's because it's an absence of insecurity. And so what I see loads of people doing, they say, I need more confidence in order to do whatever it is, whether it's to do a talk or to grow their business or to quit their job or whatever it is. It's like, man, you don't need confidence. You need courage. Just grow a pair, go and do it. And that as you do that, you discover there's less to be afraid of. The insecurity and anxiety and fear diminishes, and then you seem confident to others. Like I know I seem like a confident speaker, that sort of thing, when I do talks and stuff. But I haven't got like confidence. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not worried about it. It's an absence of something.
It's that stillness, and in that stillness, there's a sense of assurance in yourself that you don't have. It's not because confidence could be a situation whereby you have to show someone else, look, I'm really confident, as opposed to when you are, it's about you, and the right people will be around you. So you started training in NLP to become a practitioner yourself. Did that naturally lead for you to be, I want to actually create a business around this, as opposed to using this tool set to help me and in my current job? Well,
so as soon as I had the insight that this is what I want to do, right away I was like, okay, well, what am I going to need to do then? I'm going to need to have money and time. I'm going to need to get trained. So I'm always like, train with the best people. So at that time, there were a bunch of people who were the best in the world at NLP. So I just went and spent as much time as I could with them, learning this stuff and then putting it into practice. But I always had my mind on, I want to do this for a living. Now, I read a couple of books by Robert Kiyosaki in '99. So this was huge. I was at a NLP and hypnosis workshop, not that I was delivering, as a student, with a guy called Joe Riggio, who's a great friend to this day, actually, amazing trainer and amazing hypnotist, actually. And I bumped into a guy there, and we were talking about money. And I had a very traditional middle-class upbringing around money. And I was saying, I wanted to earn more money, and I was trying to figure out how to do that because I needed the money to do all the stuff as we've been discussing. He said, well, your money's basically 90% psychology, 10% tactics. And I was like, you what? He said, money's 90% psychology, 10% tactics. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, it's mostly to do with thinking and how you see it and that sort of thing. I'm like, no way. Like, I just didn't know that. I never knew that. This is embarrassing, but I'll tell you anyway. I had a friend when I was in my 20s who was a multi-millionaire, okay? And I was hanging out with this guy. We would go out drinking. We spent a lot of time together. My most leveraged thought in relation to him was, geez, maybe one day he'll just give me a bunch of money. Like, there was no sense of that was something that, you could learn or anything of that. So basically I learned to drink like a multimillionaire, but that was about all I learned.
So when that person said that to you, that landed, you were, oh my God, this is so different to what I've heard before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then I said, okay, where do I start? And he said, read 2 books. He said, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, and read The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. So this was in 99. Can't remember what time of year, but probably 6 to 8 months since I'd quit my job. Okay. So I was making decent money. I was making, maybe 10 to 12 grand a month, maybe more some months. I was on 650 a day. So whatever that was until I had that negotiation with the HR guy. So, but I was still overdrawn at the bank. I was making twice as much in a month as I used to make in a year when I was overdrawn at the bank, and I was still overdrawn at the bank. So I read these 2 books. I'm like, oh, holy shit, I've gone from being employed to being self-employed, when actually what you need is to become a business owner. That's where the time freedom and the financial freedom comes, because I hadn't realized I was still selling my time. I mean, I knew, just didn't know there was an alternative. So I'm like, oh man, become a business owner. That's the move. You got to become a business owner. So that was probably sometime early 1999. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this as a business, but I was still contracting, still selling my time. But now I was, as well as training, I was thinking, okay, how am I going to build this business? And I had just this vision of some kind of business, that sort of thing. So anyway, I ended up starting a business with a buddy of mine who had a director job for Erickson, and he was contracting as well. And we both loved NLP, and we're like, okay, let's start a business together. So we spent 2 years in that business, actually, basically doing corporate contracting, consulting, sales training, one-to-one executive coaching, some speaking and that sort of thing. We made some money and had some fun and learned a lot, but it wasn't really working. And kind of 18 months into that business, he and I started growing in different directions. Because what we'd always said, Beju, was that we would do the corporate work to fund teaching for members of the public, because we really felt like, oh, we have the tools of freedom for people. We want to share it with everyone. But 18 months in, we still hadn't done any of those courses, and we were still doing all the corporate stuff. So I was like, okay, we decided to go our own ways. So I started a company called Salad towards the end of, I started at the beginning of 2003. So in January 2003, I wrote my first article. Because I didn't know anything about marketing, but I was like, well, I can send out emails to people in my email inbox. I started creating an email list and sending out articles every week.
And when you say you sent that to your email list, or did you post it on?
No, I just went through my email inbox. I had about 300 people who I'd been in contact with over the years. Yeah. And I sent it to them. I said, hey, I'm doing this NLP stuff. I've written this article, 200-word article that I slaved over for 6 or 8 hours. Let me know if you want to I'll keep sending it, but if you don't want to receive it, tell me to do one. And so some of them said, no, thanks. But a bunch of people said, yeah. And then I started thinking, okay, well, how can I grow that? So I was very lucky. It was 2003, and sometime that year, maybe they were already out, but Google had Google AdWords. So I was like, you know what? I could put in a bunch of search terms, which are obscure NLP and hypnosis terms, and people might sign up for my email list. So I bought, oh man, I cry to think about it. I bought AdWords at 4 cents a click and that sort of thing. I got signups to my email list. And so over the next couple of years, I built an email list of about 90,000 people who are interested in NLP and hypnosis. Wow.
So you came up with the name Salad. Is there a story behind that? Or is
there is actually. So I was gonna call it, oh man, this is brutal. I was gonna call it hologram training. And I was, cause we had called our old company Hologram Change Technologies, and I already had a logo, which I liked and that sort of thing. So I could reuse the logo, call it hologram trading, save a little money and stuff. So anyway, I was running one of my courses. So I was doing a public course. Yeah, that's it. I ran my first public course before I'd launched Salad, which was towards the end of 2002. So I ran my first public course. And one of my friends came on the course, Gina, and Gina worked for a branding agency, and her whole thing was product and brand semiotics, like what's the meaning of products and brands. So she was on the course, another friend of mine. So you know what it's like, you run your first course. It may have been my first course there. It was early anyway. You run one of those courses and it's half clients and it's half friends and that sort of thing. So it was all cool. So another friend of mine is a documentary maker, and his background was as a paleontologist. He liked dinosaurs and stuff. So anyway, we'd done the course that day, and I said, "Hey Gina, you know about brand semiotics and that sort of thing." I said, "Can I run the name I've got in mind for my company past you?" And she's like, "Sure." I said, "I'd love your opinion on it." So I told her hologram training. And then Gina explained, like in depth, over the course of about 20 or 30 minutes, why it was possibly the shittest name ever known to anyone. So I immediately got shirty and defensive. And I was like, well, what would it be a better name then? Like, because I was still convinced that I was right and she was wrong, despite being a super expert. She said, literally anything you said on the course today would be better than that. And I was like, well, like what? And she said, well, like word salad. So now I had told a story. Basically, this story was so inspiring to me. So one of my heroes is a guy called Milton Erickson. And Milton Erickson was often referred to as like the miracle worker, because he was a medical doctor and a hypnotherapist. And he's kind of the grandfather of hypnotherapy. And he is one of these people who is just totally committed to connecting with people at the deepest level and to tapping into the source of healing and insight and resilience that's at the heart of everyone. So I was telling this story about he rocked up at this mental hospital where he was working. And the staff, when he came to a new hospital, they would wheel out the most intractable cases, the most difficult people. And so the person that got wheeled out for him at this place was a guy who had a condition called word salad. Basically, he would speak in word salad. So we would just like conversation, influence, cheese packet, 9-bar, 6pence. But like for hours on end in this word salads that had a structure, but it didn't have any meaning. But he could produce hours of it. So Erickson said to the staff, he said, type up an hour's worth of that stuff for me so I can read it. So Erickson studied the transcripts of this guy speaking in word salads and taught himself to speak word salad. And then he goes and he sits down with the guy. And the guy starts babbling away, and Erickson lets him babble away. And then Erickson starts babbling away, and for about the same length of time. And then the guy babbles some more, and then Erickson babbles some more. This goes on literally for hours, like for 4 or 5 hours. Then 4 or 5 hours in, the guy turns to him and goes, "Good God, won't you talk some sense?" And Erickson goes, "Certainly, my name's Milton. What's your name?" The guy says, "George." And then he lapses back into word salad. And so Erickson lapses back into word salad. Well, they go back and forth like that for a couple of weeks. The guy was discharged a month later after 7 years in this mental hospital, not having had a conversation with anyone. I heard that story. I was like, I want to be able to do that. I want to, not in terms of to speak word salad, but I want to have that same kind of level of commitment to getting the other person's world and meeting them, I could almost cry, meeting them where they are, you know, as a coach, which is kind of one of my main things these days, and teaching coaches, that looks like rule number 1 is you got to meet people where they are. You got to get their world. You got to get on the same page with them and really let them know, hey, I understand you. And you can't just tell them I understand you. You got to really understand them. And so she said, yeah, anything you said. And I was like what? She's like, word salad. I was like, okay. So I thought about it, and I thought, I'm not sure if I want to name my company after a mental illness. But at the time, Beiju, there were companies like egg and orange and this sort of thing. So I was like, well, what about salad? She said, that would be great. I was like, I'm not sure what it has to do with NLP. She's like, it's great. That's about 1,000,000 times better than hologram training. Go with salad. So I was like, good enough for me. So I chose a cool font and stuck it on stuff. And it was kind of funny. At the time in the NLP field, every company was either called the name of the owner, or it was kind of called something like off one of those successories, like Performance Super Company or Go Faster Stripes Limited or what, Ambition Massive or whatever. Or it was called a really cheesy pun for whatever reason. And so all of a sudden I had a name that was complete. So a bunch of my colleagues were like, have you really called it salad? What are you thinking of? But it actually became, and is still to this day, one of the best known brands in that world. I still get people talking to me about it.
Well, like I said, I remember it, and
yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, that's unusual. Is it an anagram for something? Is it like, then I thought, I'm a psychologist myself, so it's like salad. Is it like a concoction of different emotions and thoughts and feelings? Is it that kind of story behind it? But it's interesting what you say. It's about where Erickson identified this. What were some of the challenges that you found early on growing the business? You're an entrepreneur, because there's in the world that I'm in, I work with entrepreneurs, business owners, as you do. My background's in psychology. I very early on found there's a difference between someone knowing their art and the thing that they do and growing a business around that. And they're two different skill sets. What did you have to learn about yourself, and what were some of the early challenges that you had to overcome in order to grow the business?
Well, geez, the challenges I had to overcome there then are still the challenges I have to overcome, because the biggest challenges in growing a business are my own personality and my own kind of nature. And the art itself, the thing you said, that you've got the art and then there's the business, that's easy for me to do. It's easy for, it's a skill, right? And there's always lots to learn, but I'm so passionate about it that it takes no effort to do that. I'm like a lot of entrepreneurs. I've got millions of ideas. I love getting things started. I love doing stuff. I'm not so good at following through on stuff and actually finish. So I have so many projects that have been started and then I lost interest in doing something else. So one of the things I've really had to learn is about focus and what to put my attention on. Another thing is finding the right people that you click with and who click with your vision and that sort of thing. That's been something that, is a learning process over time. But also our mutual friend, Shah Wasmond, way back in 2006, I managed to persuade her to coach me. And so we had our first coaching call. And this was 2006, so I was maybe 3 years into my business. And at the time, I was working long hours. I had products and that sort of thing. So there was some passive income being generated. But my idea was, if I could get the passive income to like 10 grand a month, then I would be happy. Then I would be free, that sort of thing. So
did you go coaching for, was it more about how to grow the business or more about you refining your art?
Oh, how to grow the business.
Right.
Yeah, it was how to grow the business. And so, because funnily enough, Beju, I'd been looking for a business coach for 2 years, because I always surrounded myself with great mentors, but I'd been looking for a business coach for 2 years. And every business coach I spoke to was a chancer. Like they were people who hadn't grown businesses, had a lot of theories and ideas, but they just didn't land for me. And then I met Shah and I was like, oh, this person would be a great business coach. She's run successful businesses, but she refused to coach anyone. So I had to negotiate with her to get her to coach me. But we had our first coaching call and she says, okay, here's my question. What's the number one goal you could achieve or problem you could solve that you believe would have the biggest positive impact in your business? And I didn't know. I didn't have an answer. And it was, I had been working like 14-hour days and all this stuff. I didn't know. And then suddenly it hit me, oh, I need to get the revenue to 10 grand a month from passive income, because if I do that, or from product income, because if I do that, then I'll have the time to do everything else I want to do in the business and that sort of thing. So she's like, okay, go look at the numbers and see where. So one of the big things I've had to learn, and I have been bitten by this so many times, got to pay attention to the numbers. So that's been a huge one. That's been one of the biggest learnings. Pay attention to the numbers. They're boring to me, and that were historically boring. I find them quite interesting now. Pay attention to the numbers. Another thing, man, I should have this tattooed on my arm. Mm-hmm. You'll know this saying: turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, cash is reality. That is so fundamental. There's so many, because I'm very creative. Anytime I used to run into a cash flow problem, I was like, I'll just go make more money. And so I would go and do stuff. But actually that was a way of avoiding looking at the fundamentals in the business. What's working right? Where are we wasting money? Where are we wasting opportunities? That sort of thing. So that probably the biggest thing that I've had to learn as an entrepreneur is how to pay attention to what's going on now rather than always being on the next thing. To care and take care of the business as it is today, with the clients that we have today, and the processes and the challenges we have today. Because I'm always going to be excited by the new shiny thing and that sort of thing. Just having the discipline to stay on that stuff.
And do you find when you work with, because you work with lots of other coaches, you help other coaches develop their art, but they're 9 times out of 10, they're solo entrepreneurs, they're doing their business things. Do you see them making fundamental repeated mistakes?
Yeah, loads of them. Would you like to know some of them?
A couple of them would be great.
Yeah, well, so one of them is, I see this a lot with coaches and change workers and consultants, is when they're trying to figure out, everything from how to position themselves to how to market to all that sort of stuff. They're trying to make it all about them. They're trying, like, how should I position myself? What should I do? It's like, forget about that. Focus on who is your client? What do they need? What are they looking for? What are they wanting to have happen? And yeah, you can figure out things like niching and brand and that sort of thing in due course. But the starting point is always being with your clients, spending time with your clients or your prospective clients. And we're back to the Erickson thing, getting their world. What's it like to be them? What's it like to be facing their challenges, their problems, their issues, so that you can speak fluently in your client's language. You want to be able to speak your client's language. And one of the challenges I see a lot of people, and I did this too, God, to a horrendous degree, getting totally obsessed with their brand and their website, their whatever, rather than focusing on what your client cares about. It's one of the number one mistakes. Another thing is the whole thing about kind of marketing and selling or enrollment or whatever euphemism for it you want to use. I think a lot of people have had really, really negative role models of when it comes to marketing, when it comes to sales and that sort of thing. And so they don't realize that if you're going to be a coach, or if you're going to do any work where you're basically going to be a trusted advisor to people, you need to build that relationship in trust. You can't build that relationship by tricking people or by using high pressure tactics, because if you're a coach, people have got to enjoy spending time with you, or at least value spending time with you. So people need to have a good experience of you. So for me anyway, when it comes to my relationship with clients, trust is number one. Even to the point, I once enrolled a client, and then they called me up the next day, and this was for a high-end package, like tens of thousands of pounds. They called me up the next day and they said, Jamie, I wanted to be authentic with you and straightforward. They said, I was reflecting on our conversation yesterday, and they said, and I'm good to my word. I'm going to go ahead with it. We're going to work together. I'm going to transfer the funds and all that stuff. He said, but I had this inkling that I'd been kind of, that I've maybe been manipulated a little bit, that there was something that didn't feel quite right when I reflected on it. And I'm still good for it, but I just thought you should know. I said, okay, so here's what's going to happen. He said, the deal we did yesterday, it's off the table. Don't transfer the funds. I'm not going to, as it stands right now, I'm not going to work with you. We have to start over. We have to start over. We have to start that conversation over. And I don't know where it's going to end up. It may end up us not working together. It may end up us working together. But for now, the deal's off the table. Let's start over. And I said, but I need you to be a partner with me in this. We're going to do that conversation again. I said, and if at any point in that conversation, you feel even an ounce, even a gram of pressure or tactics or inauthenticity or manipulation or anything, like even the slightest breeze of it, I want you to tell me. Because to me, our relationship is so crucial. It is the healthy soil that a powerful coaching relationship is going to grow out of. And so thank you so much for telling me the deal's off the table. We have to have that conversation. And I want you to let me know if you feel even a whiff of it. And so they were like, fair enough. And so we had the conversation again, and they enrolled, and we had a great working relationship, and it's all good, and we're still friends to this day. But the reason I could say that and here's the thing, I could have done with the tens of thousands of pounds, so that it wasn't like, yeah, no problem, I'm so loaded, I don't care, you know, like, you know, a healthy 5-figure sum is always attractive, right? But I know in my heart that our relationship has to be pristine. They have to trust me. And that trust has to be real. It can't be faked. It has to be real, and it has to be demonstrated over and over and over again. It can take ages to build trust, and you can lose it in a second. So to me, the heart of being a successful coach is to cultivate trusted advisor relationships through creating value and through demonstrating every day that you are what you say you are, and walking your talk.
And I think that's so important. Not just only, you know, we're in the service industry. It's so important there, but I don't think it's not. People have this perception that whether you're selling a widget or service is not important. Trust is so important, whether they're buying you as a product or a widget or something else. And it doesn't matter what kind of business you're selling. Is if that trust isn't there, the foundations are quite fragile and loose.
Well, in my experience, Beju, if the trust isn't there, they're not going to sign up with you as a coach. Like they're certainly not going to, like my CEO intensive, which is kind of my basic coaching pack, because I only have like 6 to 8 clients a year max. So my basic package is my CEO intensive, and that's £50,000. No one's going to pay me £50,000 unless they trust me, unless they enjoy spending time with me, unless they know who I am and what I'm about, and unless they have unless they're crystal clear on some result or some transformation they want to go through or some problem they want to solve that really matters to them and is worth 50 grand to get handled. Like if both those things aren't there, the relationship and the result of some sort, no one's hiring me without those.
Absolutely. We're in this period of this COVID and the lockdown and pandemic. What has this period given you? You know, you wrote a book. One of my favorites book is a book you wrote called Clarity, which was great because it was very. The irony is very clear. It is very clear in terms of yeah, exactly, in terms of what it was trying to communicate to us. What has this period of the lockdown and us being in this circumstance where could be freedom taken away, whatever you want to call it, what has it given you?
Yeah, couple of things. So the first thing is, so when lockdown and pandemic and everything first hit, obviously there's, concern for health and loved ones and all that sort of stuff. So I acted accordingly. But the first realization I had was that, because people were saying, oh, there's so much uncertainty. And so I was like, you know what? It's not uncertainty. It's what's happened is the illusion of certainty has been stripped away. So if you'd ask pretty much anyone at the end of 2019, what do you got planned for 2020? No one would have said, well, basically staying indoors and wearing masks when I go into shops. No one had that on their 2020 plan. They had an illusion that 2020 was basically going to be pretty much like 2019, but with some extra bits and better software. And they were pretty, if you asked them, they were behaving as though that would be the case. So they had the illusion of certainty. All the while, things were totally uncertain. We had no idea what was coming. Well, that illusion of certainty got stripped away. So I was like, okay, the illusion of certainty has been stripped away, but that's good. That's good, because now I'm no longer living in an illusion. I'm closer to reality. That's good. You want to be closer to reality. So that was the first thing. Second thing, so part of our business, our training business, is we have a bunch of people every year who pay us £10,000 to do clarity certification training with us. And that's, I love doing that program. It's one of my favorite things to do. It blows people's minds and transforms their lives. I was like, what if for whatever reason people aren't up for that? So I was like, I need to do something about that. Third thing, we made the decision. So we've been doing live streaming of events for the last 8 years. And what I noticed, every year, more people were joining us by live streaming than were joining us in person. And even people who had signed up to be with us in person would use the live streaming as an option. So they'd be, oh, I'm not going to come in this weekend, I'll live stream. Because we put a ton of time and energy into making live streaming. Well, this is worth mentioning. So we have a thing in our company called Project Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky, great hockey player, used to say, he was once asked, what makes you so good at hockey? He said, because I don't skate to where the puck is. I skate to where the puck's going to be. So we have Project Gretzky, which is, where's the puck going to be? Where's the puck going to be? So 8 years ago, I was like, the puck's going to be in live streaming. People like the convenience of not having to travel and puck's going to be in live streaming. So every year we put a ton of energy into making the live streaming experience better and better and better and better. Then at the end of last year, we said, you know what? Fewer and fewer people are coming in person. Almost everyone's joining us live stream. We do the same pricing for both. So I said, we're going to go full on live streaming from next year on. So we ran the first module of our event, our clarity certification, in person in January. And then we had planned already to do it via live stream. So we did February via live stream. And then when March came, we're like, okay, well, it was going to be live stream anyway. So we had already moved the business online, which was, we were just.
So do you see that when we go back to some kind of opportunity that we can run events in real time, you will offer both options, or you will stay?
What I had already decided last year was that from now on, live in person is a premium events only. So we do retreats in the Canary Islands or in beautiful locations around the world. So retreats, if we start doing retreats again, they'll be live in person. Our clarity certification, if we have the option of doing the first and the last module in person, we'll do that. But at the moment, it's way too early to even do business on that basis. So the learning in that, though, is I have spent years really, as I've focused on learning the principles that I teach, which is the principles behind clarity, I've developed more and more trust in my intuition. So when my intuition said, you know what, we should move the whole business online, that's what we did. And like I knew nothing about the pandemic coming. It wasn't like foresight. But you'll find the more awake to intuition you are, the more likely you are to get those kind of signals. So that was the second thing. Third thing, like I said, I realized, well, what if people don't want to do a 7-month, £10,000 program? So I was like, well, better find out one way or another. So I decided that I would sign up the first dozen people by the end of June, which normally we don't even start trying to fill the program till October or November. So I'm like, I'm going to see if I can get people signed up by the end of June. So we got like 12 or 13 people signed up by the end of June. I was like, people do still want to do it. Well, what I didn't know then was that there was going to be this explosion in online education. Of course, it makes total sense now. But so we were just ahead of the curve with that, which was great. But here's the thing. I could see that the option was either sit there worrying about, is it going to work or not when I start marketing it in, September, October, November, or just get on it, take some action, find out one way or the other. I never want to be disillusioned. I always want to be disillusioned. I want to be woken up from the illusions as quickly as possible. I want to get to reality as quickly as possible. So I tested it out. And
fantastic.
Yeah,
Jamie, there's so much we want to talk. I feel we've only just started and we've gone way over our time.
I know, right? Sorry about that.
There's a part 2 to come. I think we should book in a part 2 to investigate. how what you do with coaches, how you sort of take your business to the next level. But it's been fascinating, Jamie. I really enjoyed talking to you today. Understanding how you got from the corporate world of contracting to, as soon as you what the underlying thing for me, as soon as you knew what you wanted, there was no holding back. You went and went and did it, and whatever hurdles you came across. So that was fascinating. So for those people who want to know more about you and maybe connect with you, how can they find out more about what you do?
You can find me at jamiesmart.com, JAMIESMART.com. I'm in all the usual social media places. My handle is usually JamieSmartCom, except on LinkedIn, it's Jamie Smart Clarity. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all that sort of stuff. Or Amazon, you can get all my books there. I'm Jamie Smart, the author, not Jamie Smart, the cartoonist. There's another one of us.
There is one there. Jamie, thank you so much again. Thank you for your time, and we'll look forward to speaking to you again in the very near future.
Wonderful to speak with you, Beju.
Take care, Jamie.
Thank you for listening. To find out more about myself or the Change Your Game Scorecard, you can visit changeyourgamescorecard.com, where you can find out how strong your game is and get a full detailed report. Also, if you found this episode useful, please do leave a rating or a review in iTunes to help others discover it too. Until the next time, my name is Beju Slanky.